US President Joe Biden is in Brussels and will be attending the EU summit to rebuild transatlantic relations after the turbulent Trump presidency. European sources have told agencies that the EU and the US have agreed to prolong a truce in their 17-year Airbus-Boeing row, a diplomatic victory ahead of the summit. US President Joe Biden will be meeting with the European leaders and Council today. On the agenda will be trade talks, the COVID-19 pandemic, and the issue of climate change. They are also expected to affirm Western solidarity in the face of challenges brought on by Russia and China. This summit comes hard on the heels of the G7 summit and a meeting with NATO allies, and will offer another opportunity for Joe Biden to undo some of the damages caused by his predecessor. The EU and the United States are the world's top trading powers, along with China. The Trump administration had dismissed a free trade agreement with the European Union, but President Biden sees the European Union as an ally, from promoting free trade to fighting the COVID-19 pandemic and the issue of climate change. Our correspondent Lucy Hove has been tracking all those developments, is joining us live from Brussels, where all the action is at the moment. Hi, Lucy. European sources have been telling agencies that the EU and the US have agreed to, in fact, deal with that Boeing-Airbus trade dispute. It's been a 17-year-long row. Tell us more in terms of the details and how this negotiation actually came along.
Yeah, I mean, this is a significant breakthrough, and I think it was the achievement that both sides in this summit wanted to mark as they prepared to meet with the new Biden administration for the first time here in Brussels. This is, as you say, a 17-year trade dispute that has outlived 3 US presidents, and during which, under the tenureship of former President Trump, significantly worsened after the WTO warned that it was possible to impose tariffs in this dispute over illegal subsidies on airlines, in this case Airbus and Boeing. That there were the threats of tariffs from both sides worth billions of US dollars. So the fact that there has been a truce, we understand this is likely to come in the form of a multi-year cap on subsidies for both sides. That will allow for a significant breakthrough and as you were outlining there, to reboost transatlantic alliance and allow the EU and the US to work together when it comes to other foreign policy areas. So we understand that governments from France, Germany and Spain, as well as other EU nations, have been briefed this morning on what the outlines of this truce looks like, and they are expected to sign this off ahead of that tete-a-tete between EU chiefs Ursula von der Leyen and Charles Michel and Joe Biden later on today that will culminate in a press conference where we are likely to learn more information about what exactly this breakthrough looks like. But we know that teams from both the EU and the US have been negotiating overnight, looking at the detail of this Boeing-Airbus dispute, amongst other trade issues as well. So we are expecting the announcement of that truce later on today.
And given the speculation that's been doing the rounds vis-a-vis the trade tariffs and the trade-related friction between the two sides, and how the EU plans to push the American side to find common ground. Lucy, in terms of the other issues on the table, give us a better sense of the specifics of the agenda, specifically about the issue of climate change and technology. We'll just try and reconnect that line with Lucy. She has been giving us a broad outlook in terms of what to expect from the US-EU talks. Joe Biden to be meeting with the EU leaders, and right ahead of that summit, there is a major breakthrough, as Lucy was just telling us. The European Union and the United States reaching a deal to end the Boeing-Airbus trade dispute after 17 years. This development coming just ahead of the EU-US summit in Brussels today. Like we were discussing, there are other issues on the table, and Lucy has been telling us more about the specifics of the agenda. As I was asking you earlier on, Lucy, when it comes to climate change and technology, tell us more about the issues that are on the table.
Yeah, climate change and technology will both be very important issues on the agenda. Digital regulation, reining in the power of big tech is now a shared priority for both the US administration and the EU, who for some years now, under the leadership of the EU Commissioner for Digital Policy, Margrethe Vestager, has been taking on big US firms like Google, Apple and Facebook, most recently launching a lawsuit against Facebook for unfair market practices, allegations of unfair market practices on its platform. So that will be a discussion today, working out how the US and the EU can coordinate that action, whether that's in terms of taking on the unfair competition practices, but also in that global tax, of course, with that landmark agreement on a global digital tax last week that formed part of the discussions on the G7 summit. Again, there will be further talks on that today. In terms of climate change, there will be further discussions ahead of a major UN conference on climate change later on this year, a renewal and an expansion of the ambition of global targets. Again, sending a message to countries such as Russia and China about the re-strengthened nature of the transatlantic alliance in the face of those key transatlantic challenges such as climate change. China and the COVID-19 pandemic will also be a key part of today's talks. We know that Joe Biden is keen to strengthen bolster the relationship and the support from Western leaders in his approach to China. There has been some reticence from EU leaders who wanted to sort of resolve those outstanding trade disputes before they fully recommit to giving the US their full support, given the damage that we saw under the leadership of President Trump in terms of those key areas. But if indeed there is a sense of the renewed relationship, then that could allow for the EU to move slightly more towards the US position on that and take a more hard line against China. We know that over the weekend there was talk of setting up an initiative to rival China's Belt and Road Initiative, which has given it a huge geopolitical influence. There was an agreement from G7 leaders to set up an infrastructure initiative that could rival that project. Elsewhere, there's been calls for a full and transparent probe into the origins of the COVID-19 pandemic, a much tougher line from both the EU and the US on that, including a full and proper investigation into the allegations of a lab leak in Wuhan.
Lucy Hof getting us the latest from Brussels. Thanks very much for the moment. We're leaving it there.